You're listening to Best Forevers, a podcast for kindred spirits, a podcast that encourages you to love more on your friends and to further consider the issues that plague friendships. I'm Alysa Lucas, and I love to learn. It's what I love about being a teacher. It's why I love doing research. It's why I love to read when I actually have a chance to read books that I want to read. It's why I love listening to podcasts, and it's certainly why I love friendships. Just think about all the things that we learn from the other people in our lives. So considering all these things, I think that's why I'm all about the Vocal Fries podcast hosted by Carrie and Megan. Through this podcast, we learn all about topics related to linguistics through research and the friendship of the two. Today, we'll hear from these Fry ladies as they talk about linguistics, linguistic discrimination, and how they came to be friends. So get ready to hear all about linguistics, which I geek out about, and you know what? So does my cat Ferguson. So here are Carrie and Megan. Welcome to the podcast. Can we start by having you tell us a little bit about who you are and what your podcast is about?
Sure. So my name is Carrie Gillen, and I'm a linguist. And I decided that I wanted to create a podcast about linguistic discrimination, which is what the Vocal Fries is about, because I think it's really important, and it's something that gets lost in the conversation. People who are otherwise quite liberal and are anti-racist and all these things are still guilty of judging people for the way that they speak. And so that was why I decided I wanted to do it. And I asked Megan, because I didn't think I should do it alone. I thought that would be very boring. So I asked Megan if she wanted to be my co-host, and she said yes. And so here we are.
Yeah. And so I'm Megan Figueroa, and I was very happy to do it. I'm also a linguist. In my heart of hearts, I know that I became a linguist because I saw linguistic discrimination growing up, and it was something that I wanted to learn more about and learn how language worked and learn why people were doing this to each other. So I was very happy to say yes to do this with Carrie.
Well, so for those who might not know, what does a linguist do? Is if there's a shortened version, or because I know you do a lot, and what it might mean to be discriminatory linguistically.
So linguistics is actually quite a large field, but generally most linguists are interested in uncovering something to do with the way language behaves. And so we're doing the science of language. We're taking it apart, putting it back together, kind of like physicists trying to figure out the structure of particles and so on. So that's what we do. And then, so linguistic discrimination, we can discriminate against people for all kinds of things, the way that they dress, their race, their ethnicity, their gender, etc. But we can do it in sneakier ways via language. So for example, our first episode is about vocal fry. Also called creaky voice and laryngalization.
And anyway, it's our name, of course.
Yes, I love it.
Yes, it's our name. And almost every English speaker uses it to a certain extent. Some people use it more than others, but it's very common, and it is not actually all that gendered. So it's not women who are only using it. Men use it too. It's just that we pick on women for doing it. And so we're discriminating against women for doing something that a lot of people do. And
And Carrie mentioned that linguists, it's a big field, and folks do so many different things. Like, for example, I work with babies and seeing how they learn language, and Carrie works with indigenous languages of the Pacific Northwest. So, I mean, these are very different things that you can be working on and figuring out things about language. So
not just the Pacific Northwest. I've also worked on Inuktitut, which is spoken in the Arctic, and Inuit, which is spoken in Labrador, Canada. So,
yes.
Well, I find all this very interesting because actually I'm a communication professor. So we're looking at the messages, like the sending and the receiving. And so we talk about language a lot, but not to the degree that linguists do, or to how you sort of unpack it and put it back together, but sort of what meaning. So we might spend more time with semantics, maybe, like what meaning are you trying to send to your relational partner by saying this thing? But I also teach gender communication, so I can't wait to use, I'm not teaching it now, but I'm teaching it in the fall, so I can't wait to use your first episode about the vocal fry in that class, because I'm like, yes, please.
And we're actually going to do an episode soon about literally, which is also a thing I think that is tilted a little bit more toward hating on women for saying it. Yeah, of course. So
it reminds me of how I Met Your Mother. Robin says that literally. No, I mean literally.
Yep.
So she gets sort of some trash for that. So I think there's like a level of, you know, me being really interested in this because of the communication aspect of it, and that specifically that the judging part. For communication, a lot of that comes down to the nonverbal, which would be how people say things. And that's the part you're saying, let's not judge people for, let's judge people for their message. And most communicators are looking at, you know, gestures or the tone of voice or all the different things, and they're looking to dissect the message that way. And so I love the message of listen to what people say, and not judging, you know, what is their message, not judging them for how they say it. But, and I actually have a couple things that I wrote down that as I was listening reminded me of some of the things that we talk about in my classes. And so the first one in my gender class is the use of you guys. So culturally using guys to refer to everyone. And so I thought that was interesting. I used to teach in Pennsylvania. So do you know what John is? Jawn. I did not.
I don't.
John is basically a noun that is used specifically, as far as I know, in Philly to refer to, hey, can you pass me that John or that John over there? And when I was interacting with students, I had no idea what they were saying. And then when I saw the movie Creed with Michael B. Jordan, the Rocky movie, and it was set in Philadelphia, and I heard them use the word John, I was like, hey, finally we have like accurate language use for that particular area. So I didn't know if you might ever focus on, I don't even know if this is relevant. You can correct me if I'm wrong, because I realize that communication is different than linguistics. But the soda versus pop debate. What do you use and why?
Well, I'm from Canada, and most Canadians use pop. It's just the word we use. I mean, the whole word is soda pop originally. Yeah. So half, well, maybe not half, but a large part of the population chose pop, and a large part of the population chose soda. They're the same.
Excuse me, but I say Coke.
Oh, so, I didn't know you were one of those speakers.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm from Arizona. Have lived here my entire life, and I say Coke for everything. I don't really think that. Is that an Arizona thing? Not really.
No, it's more of a Southern thing, I thought.
Yeah. So
I'm surprised that you have that. Although your mother's from Oklahoma, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's
my family's over there. Yeah. So, yep.
Well, no, that's one that I got judged for using pop when I lived and taught in Pennsylvania and New York. It's soda, and I refused to say soda, so I would say fountain beverage, and so it created quite the debate between me and students.
That kind of makes you sound like pedantic or something. Like, you're like, I only refer to things as like the most difficult way to refer to them. But
well, the other term that I grew up with was soft drink. So that's I don't use it. But if I had to switch, I would switch to soft drink before I would switch to soda.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, and it's such a part of my identity.
Yeah. Well, fountain beverage is usually what's written on the menu. And so, like, I'll go into Panera and be like, I'll have a fountain beverage. And they're like, what? They're like, the cup so I can get this drink down there. But yeah, so those are some of the things I was thinking about where I've come across where, you know, there's debates about language use and that sort of thing. And so is extremely fascinated by the podcast. And again, some of that I think is my communication background, but also realizing that I have not educated linguistics so much. And so I feel like I also learn a lot. And it's not just, I teach a dark side of interpersonal communication class. And so we talk about swearing, that some people see swearing as a inappropriate behavior. So I can't wait for them to hear that episode in that class. So I feel like I don't need a textbook anymore. I'll just be like, listen to the vocal fries and y'all are covered.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
So your conversation reminded me, or your question about pop versus soda also reminded me of the soccer football thing.
Yes.
And North Americans get mocked for using the word soccer, but soccer was another term for football, even in the UK at one point. So it's another thing where it's just a dialect difference, and everyone should just let it be. Stop mocking each other for these things.
Yeah, and I do make the low-hanging fruit joke about soccer versus football because I like soccer, and my favorite teams are in England. So I'm always like, otherwise known as football. So I do make that joke. Okay. So I was wondering, love the podcast. And so thank you for giving us some background on it, but also really interested in the two of you. So how did Carrie and Megan become to be friends? How did y'all meet? What's your friendship origin story? Is it the same? Do you agree upon the story? Maybe there are different versions of the story, but I would love to hear it.
I don't know if we agree.
Okay, well, this should be exciting.
Find out.
I guess my version would be that Carrie was my professor the first semester I started at Arizona State University. And since she's a linguistics professor and I was studying linguistics, I had her 2 other times after that. But I was undergrad, so, you don't mix with undergrads. Professors and undergrads don't mix. So I think right after I graduated, or when I was starting my master's, she then invited me and a couple other people over to watch Buffy.
Yes.
And to have pizza. And I feel like that's when it actually was okay to be a friend, like be her friend. So that's how I would say it started.
Yeah. That would be my story as well. I'm trying to remember what episode we watched. Do you remember?
No, I don't.
No, me either.
They're all great. I love Buffy, so I'm on board.
There's a couple not so good ones, but
I mean, every show wanes a little bit, right? And so this is really interesting because as I do my podcast, I actually have undergrads that are working with me. I have a PR student, Maria, who's helping me with social media, and she's interning and that sort of thing. And then Claire, who has done at least 2 episodes with me where we read each other's books from their childhood about friendship. So I made her read Sweet Valley High, which was from my childhood. And then I just read a Spy Girl book from her childhood. And then I'm going to make her read Babysitter's Club. And so we go back and forth. So, so there are ways, the relationships and making the connections. And then when it's after graduation, it seems like, okay, now we can maybe shift sort of the label we might have for the connection that we have, right? Because I imagine there was some sort of connection of, getting along or talking about things or having something in common before that.
Yeah, we must have talked about Buffy before that. That must have been how it came up. And I don't really remember it beyond that.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you made a reference in class with one of your sentences or something. I don't know. But probably. Yeah, so I guess the difference was, you no longer had an influence over my grades, right? So I feel like that was the important shift. And let me just say that one of Carrie's classes was the only time I didn't get an A+. I got an A, which is ridiculous. I was one of those students, but she gave me an A in semantics, and I was crushed.
It's a really hard class. Formal semantics is possibly the most difficult kind of linguistics to do. So,
And language-wise, wouldn't it be you earned the A versus she gave me the... Sorry. Teacher and me.
I earned my A pluses. Carrie gave me an A. Yeah.
If I hadn't given out any A pluses in that class, maybe, but
Yeah.
I did. So.
Uh-oh.
Wow. Ouch. Okay.
Uh-oh. Am I going to have to like mediate a friendship quarrel here? Well, so then how would you say the relationship transitioned past Buffy? Like, was it like a consistent getting together to watch TV, or was there different ways that you were able to communicate or to feel like you were friends or do things that friends do?
I remember it was Megan and another girl. The three of us would hang out together, and actually we went to local bars. So Lost Leaf in Phoenix, if anyone knows it. We went there quite a bit. I don't know. We also, I think we went to First Fridays for a while. It actually wasn't even about TV. Yeah. We both watched a lot of TV, but I don't think we've watched TV together really since.
No. Yeah. It was mostly about Roosevelt Row or downtown Phoenix, like the local bars, that scene. So First Fridays was like the artsy, everyone comes out on First Friday and sells their wares, and all the galleries are open for free and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I guess just like the culture, we were both interested in that culture.
Yeah.
And drinking.
Well, that always helps, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So then you're not in the same location. You're in the same state, but not in the same location. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. So then go ahead. I'm sorry. There's a little bit of lag.
We were in the same place for a while. Then I moved down to Tucson, Arizona from Phoenix to do my PhD. Yeah. So, that's why we are no longer in the same place.
So then how do you, besides, I would imagine that the podcast is one way that you can maintain your friendship, but when you're in two different locations, what do y'all do to sort of remain friends? Do you see any maintenance besides, like, do you talk on the phone? Do you text? I don't know.
We do some texting. Most of our communication is through Facebook Messenger, though.
Yeah, it is. I'm not much of a phone person. So, like, that would have never, I don't know if it's the millennial in me, but I never, like, talking on a phone is not a thing I want to do with anyone. Yeah. Like my family. No one. So, texting would have definitely been the way I talk to anyone. But, we talk on Facebook Messenger. That's the thing.
Yeah, most of the time, yeah.
It's easier to send, like, links and other kind of things through that. Yeah. For me or whatever. So, and I go up to Phoenix sometimes to visit. It's only 2 hours, an hour and a half away. So
that's not bad. Yeah, my best friend's about an hour away, so it's not too bad, the distance, when you think about people my other really good friends in Vegas and I'm in Michigan, so it's like, how do we keep up? And we don't really like talking on the phone either, so.
I mean, and we talk every day.
Yeah.
Almost,
there's always, I mean, there's always something really irritating in the news or whatever they have to share.
I mean, it's nonstop. Like, it's
it's a barrage of shit.
And then I imagine just with like the linguistics of everything, just there's so much going on. But then as linguists, excuse me, that you might even get more irritated by some of the stuff that's going on.
Yeah. So, for example, this is really kind of a petty one, but so today Trump's tweet, he used quotes for his own name, which is really strange. And some people picked up on that, but most people were mocking him for misspelling there. And I'm like, that's not the message. It has nothing to do with the message. Let's at least pay attention to the content here. Yeah. I really, when people harp on typos, it makes me so angry because it's just a waste of time.
Yeah. Yeah. And he says so many terrible things. We don't have to focus on the misspellings. Yeah. We don't have to do that.
He said lovely things. Why are we focusing on that? It's not it's not important. Yeah. And we all do it. Everyone misspells words once in a while.
Yeah. And I always think, I mean, just think about second language learners. It's hard to learn how to spell things in English. Mm-hmm. It's just, we're focusing on the wrong things and it's hurting people,
Yeah, I would think that if our attention is on these like superficial things or things that don't really matter, then we're missing out on the message and what impact that message might have on the world around us or on us specifically. And so then it's, for a sports reference, our eye is not on the ball, right? Like it's literally, exactly. We're just over here, you know?
Well, I see that on Twitter a lot, actually, where someone will tweet something and they're really proud of it. And then they get so upset because they're like, oh, no, I have a typo. And people are already retweeting it. And they just like feel so like terrible about it. I'm like, no, it's okay. You're still making an impact. Like, this is still good. You know, you got your message across. So
sometimes that's me. Okay. I'm like, oh, man. Yeah. I was just going to say, like, because one Twitter is, like, my professor account, so I'm like, does that impact the credibility I have as a professor? Then the other one is my podcast account, and I'm like, does that impact the people? But you're right. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. If students know when something is due, or I've directed them to some article that's going to have some impact on them, or people are talking about their friends more with my podcast, then all of my goals, like every box is checked, and shouldn't that be more of what I should be concerned with? So I have to remind myself.
Yeah, I think we all do. I mean, I get upset when I make a mistake too, but I also know that it's not as important as other things.
Yeah.
But like, especially for something like Twitter, which is very ephemeral, does it really matter that you made a spelling error? Whereas, you know, in a more formal document, that probably matters more. So as we always try to say, like, context matter, time and place. Twitter, it should not matter. It's too speedy.
Yeah. That's true. I always feel like if I'm not online 10 minutes later, so much has happened, and I'm like, I've missed everything. Whereas, like, so my Twitter typo shouldn't be a big deal, but my tenure packet that I'm going to turn in to try to achieve tenure should not have typos. So
right.
So yeah, definitely when we talk about that a lot in communication too, the context is going to depend on, you know, how you should communicate in that situation or what the message might mean. And so same thing with the language and what people are saying. So is there a particular story? I know you said at the beginning that you started Vocal Fries because you were interested in the linguistic discrimination, but was there like a journey that took you there? Was there a particular moment, or did you just want to do it and then you're like, let's see if, you know, Megan wants to do it because you said by yourself is boring.
Yeah. So first of all, a couple of years ago, I gave a TedX talk on linguistic discrimination here in Chandler, which is a suburb of Phoenix. And so that was sort of the original genesis, but I didn't realize back then that that's what this was going to turn into. At some point last year, I was thinking, okay, what do I want to do with my life? I'm not a professor anymore. Mm-hmm. So my husband suggested two things to me. He said, well, you could write a book about constructed languages, which is something I taught at Arizona State at one point. Really fun class to teach. Do not want to write a book about it. There are books on it already, and by people who are way more into it than I am. Yeah. And then he also said, well, and you should do a podcast, you know. And I thought, okay, I mean, both of these things are good ideas, but I don't know. And eventually I realized I could do both using linguistic discrimination. So the ultimate plan is Megan and I are going to write a book as well, based on the episodes. So
that's so cool.
That's the whole story.
Yeah.
And, well, one of the things is that I sort of started the podcast because, well, I was sort of inspired by podcasts. I'm a television watcher. So when I first started with podcasts, I was like, I'm supposed to like listen to people. I was like, do I just like stare at my phone? Like I'm like, is this what radio was like? I just didn't get like podcasting, right? And so I started with Serial, which a lot of people did. But then my first podcast was My Favorite Murder. And then, I'm a murderer, you know. And then the second one, based on their recommendation, was The Dollop, which I enjoy a lot. And then I also really like Criminal. And I would say those are my three mainstream podcasts that I would say that I consistently listen to. And from there, I would just started thinking about, I started using it in class. Like I would be like, oh, I would talk about fuck politeness in my gender class and how that like was a different sort of narrative and about thinking about these sorts of things. Or in the dollop, the battle of pants, for women to wear pants, and then I would use Gareth Reynolds from the dollop as an example of active listening, because he has to listen to the story and then do his improv. And so I just started seeing that I could use it as a teaching tool. And then I thought, well, I'm a professor. Why can't I share research findings in a way that is more enjoyable than reading a journal article that most people aren't going to read? And so I feel like in a lot of ways, like listening to your episode, I was like, this is sort of what I wanted to do, and you're doing it a lot better than I am. So, well, just like with the research and that sort of thing, whereas I've been more like, I have some episodes that have research in it, but then I also have stories. So it's more of like a hybrid between like teaching and research. Anyways, back to the friendship, because this is what it's really about. But podcasting, I think, does bring people together, right? So I brought you together to do this and then to write the book, and I think that's amazing. And I've, thought about ways to sort of extend this outside the podcast as well. But thinking about how you met and how many years you've known each other and then doing the podcast, what has your friendship meant to you? So for Carrie, like, what has it meant to have Megan as a friend? And Megan, what has it meant for you to have Carrie as a friend? And this is the part where I get to sit and watch while people go, you go. No, you go.
Well, I just realized that the first class I took with you was 10 years ago, basically,
almost.
Right? Yeah.
Almost. August.
Yeah. All right, so go on.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. I was going to say it's almost been 10 years since we first met, although I really did not know Megan at all in that first class. It was slightly too large. It wasn't a huge class. It was 72 people. But it's just big enough that you don't really get to know anybody, except for like the people who come to your office hours every week. She was not one of them. She didn't need to. Although sometimes the people who don't need to do show up. But anyway.
Yeah.
So I think it was more in the second class, which was the semantics class, right? Or that was the third class.
Yeah, it was American Indian languages.
Yeah. The Native American languages class was the second class, and then the third class was the semantics class. So I really think the third class is when I finally really got to know you as a person, as opposed to just a student. because I think semantics is just so hard, and it's like this crucible that like brings people together. And like, there was even like a Facebook group that was created by one of the students.
Yeah.
Friends of Lambda and Mew, I think it was called, which are my two cats. And I use them in my examples all the time. Because Lambda is named after lambda calculus, which is what you do in formal semantics. But anyway. Anyway, so we've known each other sort of more like 9 years, as opposed to, because that first year we didn't really know each other that well. At least I didn't know Megan. And what has it meant to me? Well, I mean, I've always been one of these people who likes to have friends across generations. So I have older friends and I like to have younger friends. And she's like a fun person who could like talk about stuff that I wouldn't necessarily know as a Gen Xer, like giving me this millennial perspective. And also just like some of the same issues, like we both dealt with. Is it okay to talk about this? Anxiety and depression. Yeah. So we both dealt with both of those things. In fact, during the Native American classes, the class that I fell into pretty bad depression. Mm-hmm. And Megan didn't know that at the time. She's like, so very surprised that I hit it as well as I did. But, I'm a master at that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so like we had all these things in common. We loved many of the same TV shows. We still do. We both are also murderinos. In fact, we went to the My Favorite Murder live show in Phoenix last week or 2 weeks ago.
Oh, cool.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's nice to have someone who's from a different generation, but also has many of the same interests.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I'm glad that you brought it up, so I wasn't like, well, she's older, so she could.
I don't care.
So she could help me with things that I just didn't know what the Oh, sorry. I think I'm on my podcast and I was about to cuss.
You can swear. You're fine. And I'm trying not to cuss at my cat because he has some things to say to you. This is Ferguson.
Yeah,
he's my producer.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just so lost. Well, I think that having depression and anxiety in common is, it leads to good friendships. I think at least it has for me. But Carrie being older, and me being such a wayward child, she basically told me what feminism was. So I didn't know what the fuck feminism was.
Yeah.
I just hated myself as a woman. So she told me that I was hating myself as a woman. And she still helps me with that. And then, she was the one where I would have a breakup with whatever man I, was seeing. Yeah. And she'd be like, come over, and then we'd have wine, and then she'd make me listen to Gautier, so.
That's hilarious. But what I wanted to say is, it seems like there have been a lot of meaningful things that you've connected over, or things that are happening in your life, and I think that's what friends do. But I also think that people might shy away from different types of friendships, including ones of different age groups. And so I have friends who are older than me, and I have friends who are younger than me, and I actually think it's awesome to have different types of people in your life. And I think that people don't realize, people think I'm old. My students probably think I'm old, and I'm like, yeah, but when you go into the workplace, you're going to be working with nothing but people who are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, perhaps, and so it's like, guess who's your new buddy at work,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that is, I think that's really important, and I wanted to do an episode on my podcast about that. I have one recording done, but I have friends who are 10 years younger than me. I have former students I'm friends with. I have friends that are in their 50s. So to me, it's like, do you have a connection, and do you have a good... Really? And I can't, the one thing is I can't lock him out because he'll throw himself up against the door, because I live in a house where the doors have never been closed to my cats. So I have 2 cats and I'm single. So they're in there when I'm in the bathroom, they're in the bed. Yeah. So it's like, there's no sacred place in my house,
Yeah.
So thanks for ruining that, Ferguson. You're supposed to be the producer. You're supposed to help me. What a weirdo. Okay. I think I got my point across.
Yeah.
Before he disrupted. you interrupted. Well, so what is it like to podcast together? So you've known each other for 10 years, and you've been, the podcast has been out since July, correct?
Yes, yeah. My 30th birthday. I'll never forget.
That's exciting.
Yeah. But it's also really cool because we both kind of find people that we can have on the show, and then we get to meet new people that way. But we're both out there trying to find people who want to talk about linguistics with us. So we get to meet new people, but also we get to Skype with each other more, we didn't do that before. So we're we're talking about things that we would have talked about maybe over a drink before, but now we're doing it with someone, someone who knows more about it with us, and just being there and chatting with them. Yeah. It's been a positive experience.
I think we're pretty good collaborators. I've been very lucky in my life that most of I can't really think of a really bad collaboration I've ever had. I've written articles and even a book with another person, and usually it's been smooth. So I've been very, very lucky, but this has been especially easy. We're just okay, here's what we want to talk about. Okay, what do you want to talk about? What questions do you have? And it just it's pretty easy.
Yeah, and we have very similar politics, so I'm not afraid. I can just say I trust you to do whatever, or she can trust me to do whatever, and it's going to be okay.
That's true.
Yeah. That can make a difference if there's disagreements about different things. But It sounds like, one of the things that I think is funny is that I am doing a friendship podcast, but I host it by myself. And so then thinking and talking to everyone about your collaborations, I think a lot of times the collaboration speaks to the friendship that you have. That's sort of like something that I've seen, and how you talk about your friendship is also, it reflects the collaboration. And so you have this positive collaborative friendship, and then it makes it easy to do it together. And so that's really amazing. And I think that you can hear that in the podcast, right? Like you can hear that friendship there. And I think that's one of the coolest parts about podcasts. It's not just the content, that it's the back and forth between people. And that it appears that you really enjoy talking about this topic and with each other, and that you're on the same page. And I love all the discussions about swearing. Like, I think I swore more today. No, I think I swore more last time. Like I'm not through your entire library, but I am about halfway through. So
I swear a lot, so it's hard. I work with kids, so it's really hard to not swear in front of kids.
Yeah, I'm bad at that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like how you talked about like your favorite swear word. And actually on the swearing episode, and one of my favorite swear words is my mom's swear word, which is in place of it being a swear word. So she says sugar jets. And so it's like and it's like my favorite thing ever. I've only met one other person who knew anyone who's ever used that, and it was his mom who used that. So it might be a generational thing. But I also, so in class, I'll be like, oh, fuck, I forgot to do something. And I'm like, but I can't say that. So I'll just be like, sugar jets, we're out of time. And students are like, what the hell is that? I'm like, that's from my mother. Thank you.
I can't believe anyone else has said. I can't believe you found another person that has said that.
It was
amazing.
like finding a unicorn. It truly was like a moment where we were just like, what? You know.
What was that avoidance that we just talked about, Carrie? Something about poop. Poop in a group.
Poop in a group.
Oh, get your shit.
No, it's get your poop in a group.
Yeah,
I've heard that.
Get your shit together. Get
your
poop in a group. Sometimes avoidance of swear words.
It's worse.
You know. Yeah. So
it certainly can be fun for the listeners.
Yeah.
But I mean, like you, fuck's my favorite. But yeah, no, I swear a lot. And so, but I think I do a pretty good job of trying not to do it in front of other people, that it would not seem appropriate for the context. But sometimes it's hard not being who I am, though. So
yeah. Yes. I'm bad at it. I swear in front of people that I probably shouldn't sometimes. I just... It's just part of who I am. My mother also swore when I was growing up, and but she would still get upset when I would swear, and I was like, "This is not fair."
Yeah, this does not make sense. Yeah.
So at some point, I just was like, "Nope, I'm swearing in front of you." That's the end.
Yep.
Well, it's interesting because when I grew up, my mom would say like butthead was the swear word, or fart. Like we couldn't say any of those words. But now,
say fart.
Maybe it's because we were at the kitchen table. You know, I mean, we are eating food.
Yeah.
You know? But I think she was also. We were sort of raised on my mom's idea of, you know, like politeness. So I think that was a lot of it. But she swears now. So, just in case she's listening and her friends are listening, she swears. Probably because me and my brothers and my dad swear. And maybe that's why I swear, is because my entire childhood, all I heard was sugar jets.
Yeah, that would lead me to swear even more, I think.
Yeah. Swear like a sailor. So, no, I've been really enjoying the podcast and the different topics. And so what are some of the topics you have upcoming that we can look forward to?
So we have one on translinguistics.
Oh, interesting. Good.
Mostly focusing on non-binary gender. And then the literally one. What else? One of my friends is rhetorician, Dr. Ursula Orr, and we're going to talk to her. Oh, you do?
She went to Penn State. I went to Penn State. But she was in the English department.
Yeah.
I've met her before. Anyway, sorry. Ursula Orr, hi.
We're going to talk about Black English, whatever she wants to talk about, because she's probably going to come at it from a different perspective than we would. Yeah. So, what else do we have?
Basque language.
Oh, right. Yeah. We have Basque. We've recorded the Basque one as well. So yeah, we've got lots of ideas.
What is Basque?
Basque is a language. It's an isolate language, which means it's not related to any other language on the planet, and it's spoken in France and mostly Spain.
Oh,
and they're probably the original inhabitants of Europe before the Indo-Europeans showed up.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
That sounds interesting. Yeah. Oh, lots of cool stuff coming up. I'm excited. And then
me too.
Yeah,
that's so fun. What are the odds? Small world, Ursula, but I forgot she's in Arizona, so that makes sense. And did you want to promote any of your social media or any particular episode that you want to highlight that people could go start with or anything like that?
So all of our social media, the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Tumblr is all Vocal Fries Pod. Mm-hmm. And what episode should we promote? I always say the first one because it's about vocal fry, and that is what we're named after. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a good entree into the field of what it means to discriminate against someone based purely on language or using language as a proxy for something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to the fourth episode too, the grammar Nazi one. But my favorite one is our longest one. It is we interviewed the former Arizona Poet Laureate, Alberto Rios, and it was just so different from every other episode. So maybe don't start with that, but I think it's a real treat because he reads some of his poetry to us and talks about living on the border of Arizona and Mexico. And it's a really beautiful episode. Yeah. We were so lucky.
Yeah.
So.
I haven't gotten to that one yet, so I'm excited.
It's a little long. I know the whole rule is maybe keep podcasts under an hour or so, but how do you cut off a poet laureate when he's reading poetry to you?
You don't.
You don't. So.
Yeah, mine.
He's also a friend of mine as well. We were in the same department together. Same with Ursula. So that's
so cool. Yeah. It's a small world after. I can't carry a tune, but this has been a lot of fun. I feel like your podcast really just captures a lot of things that I like about podcasts, and I'm sure other people do, and that's learning about interesting information in a fun way. Your examples are great, and I'm glad you mentioned the vocal fry episode as one to sort of start with, and a lot of people do start with the first one, but I love the example where the guy talks about vocal fry, that women do it, and he's doing the vocal fry as he does it.
Yes. So PSA to anyone listening, if you're complaining about vocal fry, send us you saying it, and I guarantee Megan will find you vocal frying.
Yep.
We will prove it to you that you're doing it too.
Yeah. I died. I was like, ooh, sad face, that guy. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 second.
Bye.
1 second. Ferguson, he just wants to snuggle up. I apologize for the cat today. He just it's catter day, so what can you do?
It's true. I had to lock one of my cats out because she was just meowing incessantly before we started.
Well, and I wish I could. Maybe I should start figuring out if he'll let me do that. Usually he's pretty good. He sits to the side and or he lays next to me on the floor or something like that. But for some reason, maybe he's just so interested in the vocal fries that he's like, tell me about cat meows. I want to hear more. I find linguistics absolutely fascinating. There just seems to be so many different topics and issues related to language and language structure that are really critical. And as someone who's a non-linguist, obviously, but I'm super into communication, right? That's what my degree is in. It seems like linguistics is something we just don't think about, but we might discriminate people about on a daily basis. We're not aware of it. And I find that to be really interesting. So with the vocal fries, we can learn about and consider different aspects of linguistics and how we may be discriminatory and not even know it. The language sections of my classes are usually my favorites because it seems like there is just so much to discuss in terms of how we perceive people interpersonally or how we might communicate about gender. So I appreciate these two badass friends fighting linguistics discrimination, one topic and one episode at a time. And it occurs to me that given the world we live in now, when there are just so many videos that go viral or just recordings of people or screenshots of people or the tweets that people post, and that doesn't even include our face-to-face communication, that it just seems that understanding linguistic discrimination is more important than ever. So I'm going to stand by my 3 days of gender communication where we talk about nothing but language. And Carrie and Megan, I'm going to have to email you to see if you might Skype into my class to talk about vocal fry, which I think I'm doing right now. I probably do, and it doesn't matter. We all do it. That's what I learned from Carrie and Megan. And it's the friendship of Carrie and Megan that drive this show. When two people have a genuine connection with each other, a genuine shared interest in a topic, and are generally on the same page about said topic, what results is a genuine delight. And can I say genuinely one more time? Or just say genuinely, 5 times fat? Genuine. Yeah, it doesn't work. From listening to their podcast and talking to them for this episode, I have a few thoughts about their friendship. First, it seems to me that friends can be made absolutely anywhere. All that is needed is something in common and a connection with another person. I always tell my interpersonal communication students that you can connect with anyone if you can find one thing you have in common. And, one of those things is typically, I'll say something to the students. Have you been in an airport in another state or country and you're wearing Central Michigan University gear and someone will yell, fire up chips? That's the one connection. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, you went to Citra, I go to Citra. Oh, and it's like immediately that one thing can help you build a connection. Now, certainly for friendship, you want those commonalities to mean something, and both being from Central Michigan University, for example, can be that something that means something. But a lot of times it's just trying to make a connection for a 5-minute conversation at a party so it's not awkward, or it's a way to connect with an interviewer when you're trying to get a job. But I think for Carrie and Megan, their shared interest is linguistics, which is their everyday life, right? This is what they study. This is what they do. When they read something and they see something, it's something that comes out of them, I'm sure, where it's always at the forefront for them. As well as they got that shared interest in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which, that's a great start. I mean, honestly, I pretty much would be friends with anyone who loves Buffy, the TV show. Or let's go back to the movie with Christy Swanson. I would say we would be best friends forever. So really, it is that connection, and they have a strong foundation through linguistics and TV and bars and all sorts of things that they talked about in the episode, and that is a great way to start a friendship. Second, their friendship says to me that we can become friends with people of different generations, and this is just further evidence for the things that I have discussed before, especially in the episodes Age Ain't Nothing But a Number with Bia and Dos and Blos with Ashley. So it is truly the case that people across time and experience can have things in common. I know it seems weird, right? No, it's not weird. We just have to be open to it. I think it's something that we, much like linguistics and linguistic discrimination, we don't think about it a lot, or it's not something that's really encouraged. I mean, especially when we're younger, we're not encouraged to have friends from different age groups. But age just goes away once you become an adult, right? Once you're in the workforce. Now, there's particular context, and I think that Carrie and Megan talked about this, that, at some point Megan was Carrie's student, and then after the grades and the grades that Megan earned, or as Megan said, that Carrie gave her, once that sort of factor was out of the equation, then that's when they could become friends. And so there might be a particular context where you can't be friends right away because of particular factors in place. But it's just a great reminder that we can be friends with anyone, as I said before. I like that Carrie described Megan as fun, and Megan talked about the help she's received from Carrie, and I bet they may say the same thing about the other person, that Megan would say that Carrie was fun, and Carrie may say that she's had help from Megan, and it just reminds me of some of the important markers of friendship. You know, when people describe friendship, what are the adjectives that they use? And one of the first ones is enjoyment, that we actually enjoy being around the other person. We have lots of fun, right? And then another marker is help, that our friends help us. They give us advice. They don't judge us. There's lots of ways in which we can do things, giving information or actually helping people move or whatever the case is. We get help from other people. And those are both really important to friendship. Now, maybe most importantly, in terms of what I can take away, especially given the context of their podcast, is about making a difference. And I know there's so many famous quotes about that one person can make a difference. And I believe that. But talk about when friends can come together to make a change. Whoa, can we make even more of a difference, right? That there is strength in numbers. So yes, we can individually change things and we can individually impact people, but in friendships, I think we can even do more, or in groups, whatever the case might be. So to reference one of their episodes, we can literally change things when we share common goals. So it makes me wonder, what goals do you share with your friends? What do you do to achieve those goals? Do you work together in friendship to achieve goals? How do you hold each other accountable? What sort of difference and impact do you want to make? And that is one of the things that I see, is that Carrie and Megan have this shared goal of bringing to light linguistic discrimination. And to me, I think that's what's critical, that with friends, we can do so much more. So I highly recommend the Vocal Fries podcast, if that wasn't clear throughout the entire episode. I mean, I geek out on learning, I geek out on language, I geek out on friendship, and I geek out on the Vocal Fries. I want to be a fry lady too. It makes me just want to learn more about linguistics, but I'll start with learning from them. There's just so much to consider and learn, and they have a great library, so I encourage you to start with the Vocal Fry one. It's a great one, as they suggested, and then make your way through. And there's so much that you'll be able to take away from this podcast. But also, I'm really interested in hearing your friendship stories. Please send any of your friendship origin stories, or the goals that your friends share and how you achieve them. What sort of difference are you and your friends making? Send those stories to me at bestforeverspod@gmail.com so that I can share them on a future episode. You can also go to bestforeverspod.com/surveys, and I already have created a number of friendship-related topics where you can just click on the survey, and really what it is just a space for you to write about different topics. So you can check that out. And as always, remember, I'm not nosy, but love to geek out on friendship, so send me every single story you got my way. So from now on until August 12th, 2018, I want to remind you of a little swag contest I got going on. If you take photos or videos of yourself listening to the podcast, wearing a purple shirt, because you know purple shirts are important to this podcast, or with other Best Forever swag, you'll get some new swag. So there's nothing like celebrating friendship and getting some cool stickers and pins and such. So what you have to do is go on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, hashtag Purple Shirt Week, and tag me at BestForeverspod, or on Twitter at Dr. Alysa Lucas. By August 12th, which is, hurry up and do it, is Sunday, then you will earn some new Best Forever swag. And don't forget, since we're talking about close dates coming up, I'll be on Sunshine of Power Cuts Sunshine Summit 2018 with Heather Welch, talking about friendships and connections. And that is this Monday, this upcoming Monday, August 13th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can check out her webpage for the rest of the summit schedule, which is www.sunshineandpowercuts.com. The first Sunshine Summit was amazing, and I have no doubt that the second summit will also be amazing. If you like what you have in your ear holes, there's a few things you can do. I'd love to have you follow Best Forevers on social media. You can find the podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Best Forevers Pod, and I'm at Dr. Alysa Lucas on Twitter. Social media is a great way to follow podcast updates and get involved with discussion and other items related to friendship. And I gotta say, I post different stuff on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter because I'm that kind of person. So I look forward to us connecting. If you care about friendship like I do and want to support Best Forevers, you might consider supporting the movement to love on our friends more on patreon.com/bestforeverspod. There's lots of cool perks and goals. Check it out. I would love to call you friends with benefits. Finally, thanks for listening to Best Forevers. I appreciate every single listen, like, follow, post, retweet, and share with a friend. Please subscribe, rate, and review Best Forevers. It's very helpful for the podcast getting out there so other people can learn about it. And of course, all of that warms my friend-loving heart. This week's promo features Up in 10 Club with Jaslyn, your morning toast. This podcast is for all of us, and when I say us, I mean me, who might have difficulty getting out of bed. And Jaslyn gives listeners that 10 more minutes needed to get out of bed and make most of our day. I'm happy to say that I'm an Up in 10 Club member and appreciate the motivation Jaslyn gives me before my feet even hit the floor in the morning. Have a listen to the promo and check out the podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review, and become club members. So until next time, friends, think about the goals that you share with your friends. Because without our friends, who would we be?
Do you have trouble getting out of bed? Start your day with Up in 10 Club, the podcast that gets you out of bed in 10 minutes. With me, Jaslyn, your morning toast. Whether you're snuggly, depressed, anxious, or just too lazy to get up, you're welcome in the club. It's the motivational podcast that doesn't ask too much. This is your 10 more minutes. Listen where you get podcasts and on YouTube. Be our friend on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Up in 10 Club. Please subscribe or tell a friend.